So the brand new TFT set Into the Arcane literally comes out today that I am uploading this video. However, I wanted to make this video discussing and talking about how I went from Iron to Masters for the very first time ever in any TFT set. Never really done this before, but I managed to do it on this set and how I did that and some of the things, tips, kind of like a brief overview over the things that I've learned and the things that I think you should prioritize learning in order to make climbing a lot easier for you. So that we'll be doing in this video. If you have any questions, comments, things like that, because I am going to be doing kind of like a brief overview, not too overly detailed. Everything's going to be very concise, so if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. And of course, like and subscribe for more TFT content if you are interested for me doing more of that, especially with the new TFT set coming out. And there's a lot of new changes, so yeah. I will obviously be trying to push for Masters yet again in this new TFT set. I've already been doing some like theory crafting and stuff, playing on the PvE, but I think I have yapped long enough. Let's go ahead and get into how I got to Masters. So the very first thing we're going to discuss, and what I think is the most important thing to discuss and to learn in order to really climb well in teamfight tactics, is how to manage your econ, okay? Managing when you should level, when you shouldn't level, when you should roll, when you should spin your gold, and like what stages you should be at certain levels and things like that. And how I learned it is from this guide from this Challenger TFT coach. Feel free to follow them, check them out. I will have this exact post linked in the description below for you to go to it and bookmark it in case you are new to TFT or new to kind of like learning how to econ management and things like that. I think this is very well illustrated and it kind of taught me the basis. Now I will say, as you go up in ladder, you're going to learn some new strategies and things just by watching other people play, which I guess is like another bit of advice. Watch the people who are doing better in your lobbies, watch what they are doing, right? Watch when they are leveling, watch what they are rolling, and kind of like, you know, assess, what are they doing differently that's helping them win versus what I'm doing, okay? And as you go up the ladder, you will kind of like learn other econ techs that you can do as you climb. But for the basics, for like a basic understanding, this is a really good guide or layout. He even goes into a little bit more details of like 1 cost, 2 cost rerolls, things like that. Shows you what everything means and its leveling. Show you the different stages and, you know, some tips and tricks on each different round and all the stages. Amazing, very, very helpful. I'm sure he probably has other guides and things out there as well. That is very, very helpful. The only thing I ever went to this content creator for is quite literally this post right here. So I don't know what else they have to offer, but they are a Challenger TFT coach. So I would assume that they can probably offer and help you with other things as well. But yes, when it comes to econ, it is probably the first and most important thing to learn and understand in this game if you really want to climb. All right, next we're going to be talking about Augment Selection due to the fact that in the next TFT set, there will no longer be statistics for Augment. So you can't necessarily go onto a website like Tactics Tools and find the most OP Augment and just like auto click it at 2-1 and then go off of that. Okay, you can no longer do that anymore. Those statistics will not be available. If you do find certain statistics from other people doing only maybe like their own personal background data receipts, whatever, like I guess you could look at that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't really worry too much about it. I think you should go into this next TFT set under the assumption that, hey, I just won't know, right? You just won't know. You're going to have to like go off of your own personal, like, do you think this is good for your comp? Do you think this will work for you? You're going to have to use your brain a little bit more when it comes to selecting different augments, right? But I will make it a little bit easier because I will say a certain way to play that is almost always consistent is to prioritize econ augments early and then do some of like the more like hard, you know, you're locked into a certain comp augments later. So starting off with an augment that gives you gold or gives you a decent amount of levels or things like that, so you can like play for level 8 or level 9 and then roll down, is a lot more consistent, a lot safer of a playstyle, I would say. The only way that it doesn't really work out is if you're in a lobby but with a bunch of people that are re-rolling and they're doing like very like 1-cost, 2-cost re-rolls, and you kind of just get like rolled over before you actually get to your level 8 board or your level 9 board, and you like power spike off of that. So it is a little bit meta dependent, depending on like what the meta state is. I can't really speak on what Into the Arcane meta state is going to be, because again, it's going to be released today. We won't really know until like a few weeks, right? Until we actually kind of like get a kind of vibe for the meta. And I'll go in more into the website that I would prefer using to kind of keep track of what the meta is like personally, because they do a really good job. I'll get into that later. But yes, if you want to be safe when you're like trying to pick an augment and you don't really know what to pick, always pick an augment that just gives you Econ at 2-1, and then make the more game-changing decisions later on where you're trying to get, you know, augments that maybe like give you an emblem or give you like combat augment or things like that. I think a pretty safe route is just like Econ, and then a combat augment, something like boost your unit's damage or give your units a special effect in battle, things like that. That's a pretty safe, you know, 2-1, 3-2, 4-2 kind of like augment selection that I used to use a lot throughout my climb. Because again, at certain states, you probably won't get direction every single time at 2-1. And when I say direction, I mean getting like a like an emblem early or a hero augment early. You're probably not going to get those all the time, so you're gonna have to like learn to play without giving those like clear directions and things like that. So that's my advice on that when it comes to augment selection. And another thing, when it comes to hero augments, because we won't have the data or the statistics anymore, hero augments gonna be a lot more riskier, in my opinion. You can't really just like look at all the list of hero augments to see which one's the best, which one's the worst, which one's the ones you should avoid. But when it comes to hero augments, I think your decision should be based off of the fact of whether or not you can slam items for that unit early, and you can 2-star them early, so you can actually use them to kind of like win a lot of rounds in the earlier stages. If you cannot do that, I would not pick a hero augment. If you cannot, you know, make a board that will make that hero really strong, I would avoid that hero augment at all costs, unless, again, from tier list and things like that, that hero augment just seems very, very strong, which again, it'll be hard to tell due to the fact that we won't have those statistics anymore. So again, you are kind of like going off of, you know, some challenger players said it's good, so I guess it's good, right? That's what you're gonna be going off of. So again, just be mindful of that. We won't have the data to actually prove that it is good. We would just be making an assumption. The next thing I want to talk about is being contested. This is something that's going to happen to you on your climb. No matter how much you scout, there will be a player that will not scout or pivot, and they will just go your comp, even if they did not have the board state or any of the items to even go your comp. There are people that will hard force one comp all the way to masters, and they do it like every single season. Just be mindful of those players, because you need to pay attention as to when it is a moment where you're being contested where you should pivot, or a moment where you don't pivot. And there's really only the only thing you really need to worry about, from my experience, is who's ahead, right? And what units are being contested. That's also another big thing, right? If it's a low cost units, if it's like a 1-cost reroll situation, then it really is just a matter of who has more HP and who has more of the units in gold and econ and things like that. If you have more, then you don't really have to worry about pivoting. If they have more, maybe consider trying to find a different variation of that 1-cost reroll, or maybe even re-rolling the 2-cost champions in that board or something else, and not necessarily like try to like play around hoping you beat them later, because if they're ahead of you, then they're most likely going to win out. So you might want to pivot if they have, you know, more units, more HP, and more gold than you, essentially, right? Especially if they have better items as well, you should definitely try to pivot, in my opinion. Or you can do another strat where you kind of just focus on levels, right? You don't reroll, you level up. So then you can kind of like put in more units, so you have a stronger board state while they're stuck trying to re-roll at a lower level, they probably lose more stages, and then you just kind of like outlive them. That's kind of like another strat that you can do when you're dealing with being contested. And if you're contested with high cost units, this is where it's kind of tricky, because it's definitely a matter of who's ahead, right? Because there's only so many 4 cost units in the pool, there's only so many 5 cost units in the pool. You can't really, if that's like your main carry that you're being contested on, and several people have that carry, that main carry, then you might have to pivot onto something else. You might have to like make a different carry or try to slot in something else. If say your carry is Rise and there's 4 other people in your lobby who has a Rise on board and somebody has a 2-star Rise, that's a moment where it's like you're not getting Rise at that point. Like you might get 1 copy of Rise, but to 2-star him, those people are gonna have to die first, most likely. It's gonna be very, very hard to do. So it's like things like that, where you're looking at other people's board states and you're like, they have a bunch of my 4 cost carry and I don't have any. You should try to pivot into something else. Try to like move, maybe try to change your carry to like a 3 cost carry, or just try to hopefully outlive the other people and see if you can then get them after they die, get those rises if you're trying to get rises or something, or some 4 cost unit after they die. That's kind of like how you have to think about it. If it is a situation where you need to hit a high cost unit and other people already have that unit, those are kind of those moments where you probably want to pivot, unless you just want to do what the other person's doing and not scout, don't pivot, and just force it and hope you get lucky when you roll down. You can also do that. But those, and I've had plenty of games like that, those games are a lot more frustrating because a lot of the times you just are not going to hit. And then when you don't hit, then you lose. So it can become very frustrating. You can lose a lot because of that. So just play it smart. If you really want to climb, you can't really do those like plays like the no scout, no pivot kind of thing, because it can be a little, you can kind of end up like losing to do it a lot because you're kind of refusing to pivot. So always be willing to pivot, always be willing to like change your comp last minute if you absolutely have to, or at least change your carry, right? Change who you're itemizing and putting your items on that does the damage or is your main frontline tank. Be willing to change those things, especially if they are like high cost units that you're relying on, so that you can kind of like actually stabilize and have a decent board, so you're not just losing a ton of rounds and losing a ton of HP. Alrighty, the last thing I will go over is websites that I like to use, and websites that I think everybody should use. Starting off with the most important one, I think there is not a single TFT player that doesn't use this website, and that is being the tactics.tools, mainly the Explorer. And with the Explorer, all you really would do is type in just like any unit. I was pretty much updated for the next set, so a lot of the stats might not necessarily be in yet. That's why it's probably loading. But essentially, you would type in a unit, you would type in the star level you aim to have them at, and then it will show you like the other units that people typically pair with them. It would also show you items that people typically put on them. And the more negative, I wish I could show you actually, but it's like loading because the stats are probably not in at all, because I'm recording this like hours before the official the new TFT set actually comes out. So the data is just probably just not there at all. But essentially, it will show you exactly like what's meta, what's not meta on certain units, what items you should use on certain units. And it's like very, very helpful. It also has like other statistics with traits, in looking at the placements of different traits, different items, who those items are typically built on as well. All of these stats are very, very important to know, because it really helps you learn how to itemize your carries and your tanks in the best way possible. And honestly, like what items are worth slamming. I would say that like Spear of Trojan and like Ginsu's and like Gargoyle Storm play really, really good items. Like all these items that you're seeing here seems to be like really, really high play rate items. I guess this is just from like the PvE statistics and things like that, and are used a lot. So like if you have an early start where you can slam any kind of like these early items here, these are really safe items to go, and you kind of look through and see like, okay, if I'm slamming, you know, tank items, I mean, if you slaving a tank item, you're just gonna put it on a tank. But you know, if I'm slaving IE, what are the carries that like IE and like to use IE a lot? And you can see the units that use that items and things like that, so you kind of know what to put them on later in the game. You know, what bruiser items you should go for and things like that. Just tons of data. You also kind of look at units, and they will even tell you what is like their like best in slot item synergies and things like that. So you can kind of look through this, and like honestly learning these types of things and kind of like having them. And this is the thing, right? Normally when I'm playing TFT, I will have TFT, and then on another page I will just I'll have tabbed out, and it'll be this website, right? I will typically have this website while I'm playing TFT open all the time, just so I can always, if I don't remember something, or if I'm doing like a new comp and I'm just like, I don't know what items go on this carry, I can just go look on tactics.tools and see like, okay, what items are people using on this character? How does it work? What are they re-rolling it? Are they not re-rolling it? Like, you know, what's like the better thing to do? And I just look and I see, and you basically get told. But again, this is for the new TFT set. These statistics are very, very fresh. I think they're really only relying on the PvE stuff, which might change a decent amount on the official release. So just keep up. I mean, I would say probably, I don't know if rank is out day one. If it is out day one, I would honestly wait a few days before actually playing ranked, just to like let the meta stabilize a little bit with more players actually like competing and things like that. I mean, you are in no rush. It took me the entire set to hit Masters, but again, you have plenty of time to climb. Don't worry, and especially if you just follow these little tips and advice and stuff like that, it will be a lot easier, I think, right? Knowing these things ahead of time versus when I first went into it being like, I'm gonna hit Masters. I didn't know any of this. I wasn't looking at any guides. I was just like, yo, I'm gonna try to force my way to Masters and try to learn how to play the game. And as I continue to climb and continue to lose, I started to actually start looking up guys and try to figure out, okay, like, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do? What am I doing wrong? So yeah, love this website. Probably one of the best websites to use. You know, it also shows top comps and things like that. You know, you can use this, but again, I feel like a lot of the data is probably going to change later as, you know, the meta really kicks in the next couple of days and stuff like that. The next website that I use, and the only other website that I use, is TFT Academy. I really like their layout and their like little tier list, and it basically tells you. And I think the content creator there is a content creator that like goes over this. I cannot remember their name, but it's one of these two dudes. I, you know, wrote in and just show things like that. I think you could just go to their like either their Twitch page or their like YouTube channels, and they kind of like go over comps and meta builds and, you know, what they think is OP and what comps they're very good content creators. I don't actually watch any of their videos, so I can't really say much about like their actual like videos and if they're helpful, because I didn't watch them. I just use this website because I really like how it's laid out. It shows you, you know, different variations of different comps, augments that they would recommend, and things like that. And you could just like look through it and like see like, okay, what's meta, what's good, what's, you know, what items do I build, who's on my front line, who are my carries, things like that. I guess a really good website to use. You could also have this website up while you're playing TFT, so you can just like click and be like, okay, I have a really good start for enforcers, or I'm gonna play enforcers. What is my board gonna really look like in the late game? What I'm gonna play for? Who I'm gonna itemize? Right? Who are gonna be my carries? Who's gonna be my tank? Things like that. They also even show you like artifacts, like that are pretty much recommended for the units and things like that. So it's like a lot of information is really given here. They also even show you kind of like augment priority, which is also very useful, and then give you some tips. I don't really read any of this. I don't know. I don't really read any of this stuff. The only thing that in my eyes that really matters is kind of just like seeing what comps are going to be played the most. And honestly, it doesn't even mean go these S tier comps or these A tier comps or things like that. It's more so knowing what other people are going to do also helps you a lot in your climb, so you know what units are going to be mostly contested. Like I already know when I start playing that Black Rose across the board is going to be extremely contested because it's rumored to be one of the strongest and most OP things to go and builds or comps or do whatever. So everybody, if they have a Morgana, Vladimir Star, or they get an early Cassiopeia, they are most likely going to first Black Rose. So me as a player that I am, I don't like to deal with the whole being contested kind of thing. So I will probably look at other really strong stabilizer that maybe can deal with Black Rose and things like that I could play that aren't really using the units that are used in the Black Rose composition, which is a lot of them because there's a ton of different variations. So yeah, you're just gonna have to look and see what the other people in your lobby are doing. But yeah, I really like TFT Academy. It's this and tactics.tools. Those are like the only two websites that I ever look at or refer to. You really only need to look at tactics.tools in my opinion. But if you like a tier list kind of format, just to really get a overview of all the important stuff and things like that, I would recommend this website. I know there are other websites that exist that are also really good at giving guides and things like that. But again, it really just depends. I'm not saying those other websites are bad. I just didn't use them. They just weren't, it's either I didn't like the layout of it or I didn't like how it looked. But most of these websites will probably tell you the exact same, like what's OP, what's not OP, what items you should use. So you can kind of use whatever. I also don't use any like overlays like Overwolf or Porofessor or any of those things. I don't use those things because they kind of lag on my game. So it's not really something that I use personally. Not saying that you shouldn't use it. It might make things a lot easier if you do use it. But again, I don't really entertain those kind of stuff. I just tab in and out if I need to. If I don't remember how to do something or I don't know a certain comp or what items go on a certain unit, I just tab into tactics.tools and find it out. And that's kind of like what I do. And all these sites I'm pretty sure are good on mobile. So if you don't want to like tab in and out, you can kind of just like open it up on your phone and then just do it on your phone. I think it's easier on the computer, but again, if you don't want to do the whole tabbing in and out thing or you don't have a dual monitor setup, you can kind of just do, it on your phone, pull it up on your phone and things like that and look at it from there. Alrighty, and that is going to conclude everything. Obviously there are so many like ins and outs of TFT, and there's probably a lot more niche scenarios and questions that you may have. Feel free to leave those in the comments, but overall, just understanding Econ, understanding what augments you should pick at what stages, and understanding when to pivot, I think is probably like one of the most like crucial things to know in the beginning, I would say. And then as you move up the ladder, you'll honestly learn the other types of things kind of firsthand, just through trial and error. Just play the game, right? The best way to learn is to play the game, right? So you're not gonna like know how to do everything first off, right? Like I didn't. I put in a lot of hours and a lot of games into Teamfight Tactics to actually learn and understand the game to a deeper level to be able to kind of like actually climb. So again, just play the game. That is like I guess that's the number one advice. Forget everything else I said. The number one advice to learning how to climb, to be able to get to Masters and TFT is by simply playing the game. That's it. If you don't play the game, you can't learn. So play the game. That's really all I can say. If you did enjoy this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope to see you all in the future and more Teamfight Tactics content and all that kind of good stuff. And I will catch you all in the next one. Peace out.